Reputation.com protects your privacy and reputation on the internet.
And when it comes to information on the internet, do you think people realize how much of their personal information is not only out there, but is being bought and sold?
People do not realize how much of their information both surfaces on the internet, not just primary information like your name and your email address, your phone number, your age, your healthcare information, but also what you can call derivative or secondary information, which means what your profile looks like, what tastes you have, what you're probably going to do in the future, what your income level probably is, or your income level probably will be. People don't know that both kinds of information are both widely available on the internet and then also bought and sold about them without their knowledge or permission to people they can identify for purposes they can never know. It's one of the great open secrets of the internet. It's not a secret. It's one of the great open secrets of the internet, and most people just still are not aware.
Tracked online without their knowledge?
People's habits, their lifestyles, their choices, their tastes, their activities, their friends, their friendships, their romantic lives are all being tracked in excruciating detail on the internet. It's pretty clear that probably not even your spouse knows how much the internet knows about you.
So what can you do anything to try and stop that from getting out there?
Well, this is a problem that begins in technology, and usually problems that begin in technology are solved through technology. So insofar as there's a link, a series of links that create a chain of information about your life, a kind of a chain and a web of information about your life on the internet, the best way to go about destroying that chain so that the different pieces of information about your life cannot be connected to one another and then sold because they're sold with greater value when they're all connected to one another is to start to remove some of the links in that chain. So what Reputation.com does, and what you can do for yourself in some cases, is to start attacking the strength of that chain, the strength of that web of information about you, by removing some of the key information about you from some of the databases that professionally collect it and sell it.
One representative here in Missouri says that the state is selling driver's license information pretty regularly to many different people. Is that surprising at all?
It's not surprising that state agencies are selling information about their residents. I can't speak to the particular case that you have in mind because I don't have my hand on the facts, but it sounds true, and it's consistent with what is true in other jurisdictions and other parts of the country and the world. The valuable information that we give as citizens and residents of different jurisdictions to our state governments and federal government are very valuable to the data brokers who are in the business of buying and trading and selling information. In some cases, our governments are giving it away. In some cases, our governments are selling it for fun and profit. And while it's often lawful, we can decide whether it should be or whether we feel good about it.
Yeah, and looking at it, is most of this or all of this legal as of now?
No, the laws that govern data privacy in America are based on principles and technology that are both 50 to 100 years old. Used to be back in the day that if you wanted to go research someone's family, you could go down to the courthouse, or first travel to the courthouse where they live, in the town where they live, go to the courthouse, talk to the clerk behind the desk, make friends with her, and then hope that within a week your request for a mimeographed copy of the divorce record was going to be mailed to you or handed to you in person. Nowadays, sitting in your, let's say, undershirt in your bedroom when you look someone up on the internet, you can almost not avoid information about their marital or personal history, even though you're not even interested in it in the first place. You're just trying to find out where they work or what kind of tastes in restaurants they have based on their social media pages. So you have this idea of openness and transparency that we all praise and embrace as a concept in America that led to a series of rules governing privacy that made sense when there was a high amount of friction or a high amount of difficulty in actually getting very intimate details about a person's life in one place based on technology. Now, when technology makes all that friction go away, and it's so easy for people to collect huge amounts of information about you, including very detailed information about your romantic and health life, now it doesn't make sense that these old rules should still apply. However, the rules have not caught up to the age of the internet. And so the guys who are buying and selling this information without your knowledge or permission and selling it to people you can't identify for purposes you can never know, what they say is, hey, this is lawful, this is okay, because the rules say that we're allowed to collect this, what's called publicly available data. But the idea of publicly available is very different today from what it used to be. Publicly available used to be publicly available with a lot of effort, and now it's publicly available and it's unavoidable.
What kind of purposes is all this information used? So, I mean, what do these companies do?
The thing that some people care about, first and foremost, is the field of digital advertising, right? If you like Mustangs and I like SUVs, then maybe we're going to start to see different ads on the internet. Digital advertising, while it bothers me in some ways, doesn't really bother me as the main or principal application of the use of this data. The data that are being collected are increasingly being used for much more substantial purposes, and the roadmap includes things like how to assess your healthcare insurance premiums, whether to give you a certain kind of job, whether to extend you credit and on what terms, what prices to charge you for e-commerce goods. And by the way, what I'm saying is not news, it's not controversial, it's just not very well covered yet. It's starting to get well covered. The New York Times and Wall Street Journal have both covered these concepts in some depth, as have some big papers and other media outlets from around the world. So we're starting to see much more invasive and problematic uses of data that you didn't even know were out there about you.
Can this trade of information be harmful to someone?
Very specifically, we now know that the trade of information results in a lot of people not getting credit offers, not getting offers of loans at different rates, not getting offers to buy products at different prices. And what's most scary about this, I wrote an article about this in the magazine called Scientific American a few months ago. What's most scary about this is not that you might get a different insurance premium from me or that you might get a different offer from me. I think we all understand that there might be legitimate business reasons for those different things and different pricings to happen. What's scary about this is that this is all happening without our knowledge or consent. I don't mean like legalistic consent. I don't mean, hey, you checked the terms of service when you logged on to the social media site, so you're part of the deal. I mean actual knowledge and consent, where you actually can read the meaning of these important terms. I went to Harvard Law School, and the reason I say that is just to say, hey, I got some legal training, and I can't read the terms of service of these long and lengthy documents that a lot of these sites have, that allow them to sell these huge amounts of data about me to anyone they want without my knowledge. So the point is not that these things are happening that could be harmful or helpful to you, by the way, in terms of different prices and different opportunities, but that you have no idea, that we have no idea that this is how these pricings happen. We have no idea that we're getting an offer for $10 and our neighbor's getting an offer for $8 for the same exact product online that we're both trying to buy. The internet's very good at operating like a one-way mirror, where the people who are on the knowledgeable side of the mirror, on the non-reflective side of the mirror, see all the things that they need to see, have all of the advantage of all of the data and all the insight, and we don't. We have only the thing that's right in front of us, so we can't tell what's to the left and to the right and above and below our scan of vision. So it's both harmful and malicious in the sense that it's happening without any sense of our ability to know that it's happening.
And then finally, in a previous interview, you had kind of called the situation as it stands. I believe your words were, it's kind of creepy. Do you believe if it was transparent and maybe even folks were getting a cut of the money, that it would be less creepy?
I believe it would be much better, not only not creepy, but awesome, if it were actually transparent, an actual knowing trade, and if you, the end user, were actually getting a cut of the bounty of the benefit. In fact, that's exactly what my company is doing. And so what my company is doing is building a business around what we call a data vault. And the idea is that you put your data in a vault that we prepare for you. It's a secure vault. It's a place where you can put trusted, trustworthy, accurate information. And then with your explicit knowledge and consent, we can trade that information for you in your behalf, acting as your agent or as your broker. You know what we're doing with it. You give us explicit permission to do it at certain occasions for certain purposes. And then you get a cut of the benefit very explicitly. It's exactly what the future should be. It can be. The internet as it's built today is an accident. It's not the best of all possible internets, and I think we together can make the internet better.
Actually, just one real brief question here. Do you know how much some of this information goes for? I mean, how much does it cost to get a record?
How much does it cost to get
to get some sort of record? Do you have any sort of range or price figure for how much it costs?
Okay, if you want to buy a record about a particular person, it can range from $0 to a couple $dozen. That's sort of one way to ask the question. Another way to ask the question or to answer your question, it would be people can be worth in a given database anywhere between sort of tens of dollars to thousands of dollars to the database, and the value of a person, quote unquote, of a record as you describe it over time depends on a few things. It depends on often their kind of socioeconomic status. Usually the wealthier you are or the higher paid you are, usually the more valuable you are to vendors because they want to be able to sell you more stuff, if that makes sense. But also it depends partly on the intent of the vendor, meaning if they're trying to reach people who live in rural communities, who vote Republican, who have at least a high school education, who drive a certain kind of automobile, and who have a certain kind of taste in music, that's a very specific and narrow inquiry. And therefore, the same person who finds himself qualifying under those criteria might be more highly valued in that query with that specificity than he or she would if a different vendor were asking, hey, I just want to talk to people who live somewhere rurally, if that makes sense, a broader inquiry. So it's a highly dynamic pricing model for the data that gets surfaced in these inquiries.